Okay, I make it 9:30, so we can get going. I'm sure people will be joining us over the next sort of 5-10 minutes. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all keeping well. Hope you've all had a safe and enjoyable Thanksgiving. Just to briefly introduce myself for anyone that doesn't know, I'm Tim Melvin. I'm the current president for the Los Angeles chapter of ASSP. And I'd like to welcome you to today's session, which is part one of a two-part professional development mini webinar series that we're hosting. So this session today will focus on the topics of candidate marketability and career path strategy, while the next webinar is around interviewing essentials and preparation. And just as a reminder, part two will be hosted on, I believe it's January the 12th. So that is 6 weeks from today, same day, same time. So hope to see you all back here. A couple of quick technical requests. You may see that your microphones are muted at the moment. If you could please all just remain muted throughout the presentation, just to avoid any feedback or interruptions. There is also a chat function available at the bottom of the screen. So I do encourage you, please write any questions that you may have as we're going along. I'll be monitoring that chat. I can capture any of those questions, and then we can address them later on in the session once we move into more of an open discussion in sort of the last 10-15 minutes or so. Finally, I'd like to introduce today's presenters. First up, we have Kate Fontes and Ryan Waters of Shirley Parsons. The same organisation that I work for, albeit I am no longer based from the flagship office in Boston, which is where they're located. I moved out here to Los Angeles a few years back, not just to get away from Ryan, but also to get away from the New England winters, of course. Kate and Ryan have been with the business for 2 and 4 years, respectively. They have diverse experience in talent acquisition and talent management across a wide variety of industries, organizations, and functional levels. Joining them today is Dr. Colin Brown, Professional and Organizational Advancement Manager with the PCSP. Colin is an EH&S professional himself and an educator with extensive experience spanning recycling, manufacturing, academia, healthcare, and biopharmaceuticals. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Kate. Good afternoon, Kate.
Hey, how's it going? And yeah, everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm excited to give this presentation. It's one of my favorites. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. We'll get going and then we'll take it from there. So bear with me. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep, I can see that clearly, Kate.
Awesome. Alrighty.
Yes.
So yeah, so today we'll be covering candidate marketability and how you can work to build your own personal brand. And so first we'll just do a quick introduction for Shirley Parsons, followed by a definition of what marketability is. Then we'll go through the steps of building your brand, and then I'll sign it off to Colin. So first off, Shirley Parsons is an ever-growing talent network of EHS professionals. We've supported projects and organizations across 32 countries. We have 60 plus specialized HSEQ consultants, and we're based in the USA, the UK and Ireland, and Europe. And so typical roles that we recruit on are across all levels. So anything from environmental technician to an EHS manager, all the way up to a VP of global safety. And so we were founded in 2005 by Shirley Parsons, who is herself a chartered safety professional. So we are the global leader in EHS recruitment services, and we have clients in every industry vertical, but some areas of our focus would be consulting, construction, logistics and manufacturing, R&D utilities, and we have some specialisms as well, process safety management, industrial hygiene, and sustainability, to name a few. And so we have 4 core values, the first being partnership. We believe in long-term relationships that are built on trust with both clients and candidates. And so the way that we do that is through open and honest communication. We believe in having transparency and honesty both internally and externally. That allows us to deliver a high quality service. We're focused on continuously improving our processes and going above and beyond. And the reason we're able to do that is because we're drawing from expertise from our founder and staying at the forefront of change within EHS. And so what is marketability? I know it's kind of a vague term, but if you do a quick Google search, marketability is defined as one's attractiveness to potential employers or clients. And so there are different factors that will play into your own individual marketability. That includes your education level, the type of degree that you achieved, your experience level, how many years have you been in the field and the industry that you've been in, and then additionally, your professional associations, as well as your certifications. All of that will encompass a kaleidoscope of your own personal brand. And so how can you improve your own marketability? Well, there are some factors that you should focus on optimizing. The first being social media, particularly LinkedIn and other professional profiles. This is a key area for you to optimize the image that you're putting out there to not just your colleagues or your associates, but your potential employers. And so from there, the next step would be working on your resume and cover letter, because that's the first touch point. That's going to be the first way that you can introduce yourself to a potential company that you'd like to work with. And as you are crafting your resume, because you should be continually updating it, you should also be tracking your accomplishments in your work. And that can be your current position, but it could also be volunteer work that you're doing, or if you have any side projects, like if you are delivering trainings, anything like that is worthy of keeping tabs on so that you can reference that when you get to a stage where you're ready to make a change with a new company. And from there, networking and associations are equally important because these are going to be different channels that you can use to access opportunities that you may not have come across otherwise. And then finally, certifications are important. A lot of employers are targeting candidates who have certain credentials that are affiliated with their industry. And so as you're thinking about your strategy for growing your career, you want to keep in mind the certifications that might help make you more attractive to potential employers. And so first off, with social media, we'll take a look at LinkedIn. So profiles that have a picture actually get 21 times more views than profiles that do not. So if you don't have a picture already, this is something you might want to consider. That said, you do want to ensure that your profile picture is professional. It's very easy to take a professional photo, especially with today's technology, smartphones, they have good filters, and it would be fairly simple just to have, a colleague or a family member just kind of help you step aside and take a quick photo. But a general rule of thumb is that you want to have it be kind of shoulder level up to your head, a little bit above, and you want to be wearing business professional attire, so a suit jacket or a blouse, and you want to be facing the camera, smiling, and be clean cut and clean shaven. That's just good practice, and that's going to set the right image for you. From there, if you've gone to school, if you have a degree, include the school name and the degree you achieved, as well as any honors that you received. You don't have to include everything, every single course. It is helpful, but not necessary, but you do want to include your education because that's just another indicator to potential employers that you could be a good match for their opportunity. And then in the work history section, I highly recommend that you include at minimum your company name, the title, and the dates of your employment. If you're so inclined, it's also helpful if you add some bullet points as if you are writing a resume on your LinkedIn profile, because that is something that recruiters and hiring managers will look at, and it's just another way for them to determine, if you have the skill set that they're targeting. And finally, something I very much recommend. And it takes a little practice, it takes some getting used to, but just reaching out to your network and getting recommendations, because this is just another way to build your reputation as somebody that is an expert in your field and that has the experience that people are looking for. So it may feel awkward at first, but just reach out to folks that you have a good working relationship with and see if they'd be willing to provide a recommendation for you, and maybe you can do that for them. And that's just a good way to kind of build that mutual trust. And then moving on from there, some other additional ways just to kind of amplify your LinkedIn profile. Not necessary per se, but definitely helpful. So location, if you include your city or state where you live, that could be a great way for you to open up some doors to local opportunities, because if a recruiting manager sees that you're based in Houston and they have a job in Houston, they might be more likely to reach out to you if you did not include a location at all. Contact info is also very helpful. Not everyone's comfortable including their phone number. That's okay, but definitely an email, because you want to create that access point, right? You want to allow recruiters and hiring managers to approach you with opportunities. So if you add contact information, they're more likely to reach out to you directly. Also, keywords are very relevant. And if you aren't optimizing them already, I highly recommend doing so. The reason for that is LinkedIn actually has a search function. And so recruiters like myself and Ryan will actually utilize the search function in order to find qualified candidates that we may not have otherwise come across, right? So things like if you've done industrial hygiene, you can include the full phrase like industrial hygiene, and then additionally include the acronym too, IH. That gives you twice the probability of coming up in a keyword search. And then finally, having headlines helpful. If you change your headline to either reflect your current position or your target position, that is just another way for a recruiter to say, oh, okay, this person's an industrial hygienist and I have this role in industrial hygiene. That could be a match. Let me take a further look. So just little ways to optimize your profile, make yourself as available as possible, and give recruiters and hiring managers more reasons to contact you. And then moving on from there, talking about our personal social media, so Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. These are awesome tools for engaging with our friends and family, and they're really positive, and we're lucky to have them. But I would say when it comes to your career and your professional goals, it's best to keep them separate. The reason for that is that, if you have very strong political opinions, or if you just, you have a certain lifestyle, that is something that you're better off kind of maintaining that in your personal life, and then in your professional profile, keep it a little more neutral, because when companies are reviewing you, they may take into account things like that, and they are not only considering your skill set and your background and your expertise, but also how you're going to fit into the company and the image that you're going to project, right? They want to know how you are also going to contribute to their branding as a company. So I would recommend just keeping personal and professional profiles private or separate, and then personal accounts should be private or viewable to friends only. That's just a good practice to make sure that there's no kind of crossover. If you are an online influencer, I would recommend keeping your public social media accounts PG rated. A good rule of thumb, no matter how old you are, where you are in your career, or what your interests are, is that if your mother wouldn't like it, your employer probably wouldn't like it either. So definitely just keep a good practice up of removing any questionable pictures or posts. And so here's a little comparison. So on the left, we have an individual who is neatly dressed. He's got a crisp button-up shirt. His hair is cut neatly, he's clean shaven, and he is facing the camera. It's well lit and he's smiling. This is a great picture. Honestly, it's very approachable and it comes across as very clean cut and professional. So this is the kind of picture that you want to be targeting. On the flip side, to the right, we have someone who took a quick selfie in their car. They're wearing a wrinkly t-shirt, not shaven. They're wearing sunglasses. You can't see their eyes. And the angle is coming up from the chin. So this kind of picture portrays a different type of energy. It's less welcoming. It comes across as a bit standoffish. And that's not the energy that you want to be portraying in your professional profile, right? Because again, you're trying to optimize the ways that you can attract potential employers. So we'll move on now to resume and cover letter. So here's a pretty shocking statistic. The average recruiter or hiring manager only spends about 6 seconds reviewing a resume. And I know that sounds like not much, but when you take into consideration the fact that for any given opportunity, there are hundreds of applications and that you'll be competing against hundreds of other applicants, it makes sense why the timing is so quick. Even the best hiring managers and recruiters could only really spend about 5 minutes on a resume. So the way for you to optimize that short amount of time that you have and to capture someone's attention is first off to have very concise and neatly organized content. Because if your information is all over the place, if your career history is not in chronological order, or there's just different like big blocks of text all over the page, that is not going to be the most efficient way for a hiring manager to read through your resume and get the information that they need. So that's something you want to avoid, because you want to be able to get their attention in that snap 6 seconds and then have them continue reading. So from there, highlight your skills and projects that are relevant to the position. I know it's tricky and it's not going to happen every time, but in general, good practice is to update your resume with every job application, because you want to take the skills that you have that are particularly relevant to any given role and highlight them at the top of your bullet point section, right? Because you want that to be noticed first. You want to be identifying yourself as having the right skill set so that the hiring manager will look at that and say, oh, okay, yes, this is my person. So additionally, something that you want to make sure you're always doing is including your titles and dates of employment. If you don't include these pieces of information, that could come across as a red flag to potential employers, particularly with dates of employment. So if you exclude your dates of employment, a hiring manager might wonder, okay, well, how long were they working there? Was there a gap in their employment? Why was there a gap? You don't want to have those questions coming up off the bat. You're much better just including all of the information, being transparent. And if you did have a gap, that's okay. Just be prepared to have an honest conversation during an interview. And that's just the way to put your best foot forward. Additionally, your resume should not really be more than 3 pages. Sometimes for various industries, you might have like a project list, and that's good to include, but the general resume itself should really be 1 to 3. And additionally, your cover letter should only be 1 page. And something to take note of is actually, if there's no cover letter requested, you don't really need one, right? Because it's not a requirement. And unless you have a reason that you need to kind of specify why you're interested in an opportunity, it's just not necessary. But I would say a good time to use a cover letter would be, for example, say you are trying to relocate to Los Angeles because you have family there and you know you want to get there, you have a plan, you have a timeline. This is a great thing to include if you are applying to opportunities in Los Angeles, if you are living, like say in Boston, right? Because at first glance, a hiring manager might look at your application and say, oh, okay, he's in Boston. Well, I'm not looking to relocate a candidate, so instead, if you include a cover letter and you say, hello, I'm so-and-so, I have this skill set, I'm very interested in this opportunity for this reason. And further, I know I live in Boston, however, I'm planning to move to Los Angeles. Here's my timeline, here's what I'm going to do. I would love to be considered for this opportunity. that's a great way just to kind of explain the circumstances so that when that hiring manager sees your application, they go, oh, okay, well, they're coming here, so I don't have to worry about relocation. Like, yes, I would like to talk to them. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind. From there, accomplishments are very important, and tracking accomplishments should be a continuous practice. So take stock of your achievements and your projects, especially what you can quantify. It's not always easy to start off the bat, but just work towards trying to track different percentages, or just, you know, anything that's going to help kind of give a potential employer an idea of how you can contribute. And so I have a couple examples here. So for the EHS manager, they developed and implemented a safety transformation process, increased employee engagement that resulted in a 72% reduction in industries. So the action here is developed and implemented a process. The result is a 72% reduction in industries. This is a great example of the way that you can demonstrate quantifiable achievement by showing an action and a result. And so next I'd like to talk about networking and associations. So you want to tap into multiple channels. And I know that's really challenging right now with COVID-19, and we're not doing as many face-to-face interactions or conferences, but it's still worth your time to continuously stay engaged. And you can do that through alumni groups or virtual career fairs or virtual conferences. Also just going on LinkedIn and engaging that way, circulating content, or just reaching out to colleagues and checking in, catching up. It's all great ways to just stay connected. Also professional associations such as AIHA, that is a great way for you to kind of stay on top of industry trends, and then stay on top of the forefront of change within the EHS profession, so that you are prepared to help not only yourself develop professionally, but your company develop and stay within that continuous improvement mindset. And then referrals are great. So if you're not sure where to start, you can refer to your colleagues, or if you've ever volunteered and you work closely with somebody, that could be a great referral, professors. So there's really anybody that you worked with in a professional way, that's great to cultivate, because you're going to need that if you are applying for or just interviewing for opportunities. And you want to maintain that, right? Because you never know when a great opportunity is going to come your way. So you want to stay prepared. And finally, if all else fails, you know, workshops and webinars are a great way to get connected. You might learn something, then you can, you know, chat with other people who are kind of in a similar situation, and just build connections that way. But overall, the goal is just to continuously and slowly build authentic relationships with your colleagues, because they're going to have knowledge to share with you, you can share with them. And sometimes, you know, colleagues have information about opportunities you might not have otherwise seen. So it's a good idea to continuously engage with other people in your practice. And finally, certifications. So we'll just touch quickly on these, but 3 things I would recommend is do your industry research, explore your options, and ask around your network. So when I say industry research, I mean, if you know that you have a particular interest in a specific industry that you're targeting, like say you want to get into solar renewables, right? Okay, so what are the kinds of certifications that are going to help you become an attractive candidate to employers within solar industries? So right off the bat, let's think about what solar encompasses. Solar is a form of energy generation, and you know, we use the sun to create electricity. So, okay, electricity, what are the certifications that relate to that? Oh, maybe it's the maybe it's the CUSP, or maybe you can think about NFPA 70E and learning about that. So it's thinking about how to cultivate your skill set that's going to give you the foundation you need to get where you want to go. And definitely explore your options. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself into one thing. And that is something that I would say is particularly important, is just keeping an open mind and just making slow progressive steps. And if you're not sure where to start, or you're not really sure in general, ask around your network, particularly your senior colleagues, because they can give you some advice about what they did to progress their career, and you know, how they focused on building up their repertoire and their certifications, and what potential employers actually found attractive about that. And on the flip side, so what I would recommend is don't pigeonhole yourself to one industry, but also don't spray and pray, and I'll go into what I mean by that, and don't procrastinate. So when I say pigeonholing, what I mean is don't decide that you have to do one thing and then get yourself stuck in it if it doesn't make you happy, right? Just think long-term about, okay, what are the things that I enjoy? What do I excel at? And then what are the steps I need to take? What can I do to build my skill set and, you know, achieve certain certifications in order to just kind of help raise me up? So I would say slow and steady is definitely better here than just trying to like amass a bunch of certifications all at once. Just, again, do your industry research and then just take slow and steady steps to achieving those goals. And again, don't procrastinate, because it's only going to benefit you to take the steps now, right? You don't want to wait, you know, 5-10 years to finally go after something that is really meaningful to you. And I would say, as long as you are making progressive steps, you can't go wrong. So that is something to keep in mind, not just with certifications, but overall with your marketability in general. So that is it for my presentation. So I'm going to close out and hand things off to Colin, and we'll take it from there.
Great. Awesome, Kate. Great presentation. I really liked what you talked about, from everything from social media to tracking your accomplishments to your resume and networking. That's all so important. So thanks for that. Thanks for that great presentation. I always like that presentation a lot. Can everybody hear me okay? If you can, on Zoom, please scroll down towards the bottom under reactions and find the thumbs up. I'll ask you to do that now, because there's a couple points throughout this presentation where I want to interact a little bit. So if you can work the thumbs up, I'll ask you to do that a little bit later on as well. And I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay. And is everybody able to see the slide presentation?
Looks good.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so welcome everybody. I appreciate you sharing your time with me. Thanks for sharing your time this morning. Thanks to ASSP LA and to Shirley Parsons, Tim and Frank and Kate and Ryan. I really appreciate you inviting me to talk about this important topic. And what I want to talk to you about today is your overall career in EHS. And as safety professionals, we're often concerned with continuous improvement, right? We implement safety management, and we run this cycle of continuous improvement to improve these safety programs and help the workforce. And really what I want to talk to you today about is continuous improvement of your career, of your own career and your own path in EHS. We come into this field through so many different ways, and I really think that this is one of the best career paths a person can be in. I consider myself lucky to be in EHS every single day. So again, I'm really appreciative of you sharing your time and allowing me to talk with you about that a little bit today. At the end of this, we'll be able to go through some questions about the first presentation and this presentation. So if you want to go ahead and type those into the chat as well, we'll be able to curate those and talk about those at the end as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. I'll give you a little bit of my background so you know who I am and where I'm coming from. I came into safety, I did an undergrad and PhD in safety sciences, a master's in industrial hygiene, and I've worked in several different industries, mainly focused in the Midwest and Northeast. I started my career out in scrap metal recycling, so working with the heavy machinery, doing industrial hygiene sampling for lead, cadmium, arsenic, hexavalent chromium, and I started that in the Midwest in scrap. I worked in conveyor manufacturing. I then moved to Boston. I worked for Boston University Medical Center, where I worked on everything from large construction projects, asbestos remediation. I worked in the research labs there and at the hospital as well. And then I also worked in biopharmaceuticals, managing safety and industrial hygiene programs. And before I came to BCSP, I was also an assistant professor at Keene State College teaching safety at the undergraduate and graduate levels. And I've been with BCSP for about a year now, and just really enjoy being able to talk to people about safety and this career path. I want you to know if you have any questions about this presentation, I'll put my contact information in the chat as well. So please feel free to reach out to me anytime after this presentation if you have any questions about EHS, about BCSP or certifications, and I'll be happy to cover that with you. So that's a little bit about my background. And what we're here to talk to you about today is candidate marketability. So Kate did a great job in the previous presentation about talking about how you can make yourself more marketable in EHS. And so how do you get to the actual point where you can set the goals, where you figure out what goals you need to set first of all, and then how do you follow through? And what are the many things that you can do to actually become the one to achieve those specific goals in safety? And so we'll talk a little bit about that. Many of us are here for many reasons. You know, so many people have lost potential opportunities or even jobs due to COVID. So this is a really important topic, not only just now, but also going into the future of how you can actually make yourself more marketable. So the first thing that we need to do is really understand where the problem is. And it doesn't matter if you are an emerging professional or even if you have lots of experience and you've been working in this field for a long time. Usually what happens is at some point you're going to come to a period of reflection where you're going to look at the goals that you've set in the past, maybe even set some goals for the future and outline kind of where you want to be. For example, do you want to be a supervisor? Do you want to be high-level management? Do you want to be a VP of EHS? Maybe training is your passion, and that's something where you really want to focus your time and energy. Is there a specific area like industrial hygiene or fire safety or ergonomics? What is really sparking your interest? I can tell you from my own journey, I really started out purely in safety. And when I started doing some sampling and understanding industrial hygiene, that emerged as one of my passions. So you want to kind of diagnose where you are and figure out what your goals are. If you're a lot like many safety professionals and many people, sometimes you might even feel a little bit of what you call imposter syndrome. So if anybody's ever felt imposter syndrome, it's really where you're questioning yourself whether or not whether you have the experience, whether you have the competence needed to do what you're currently doing. That's a very normal feeling that people might feel throughout their career. If you're looking at LinkedIn and you're noticing people with certain qualifications or even certain job titles and you're feeling jealous, this is an indication that it might be a good point to think about your goals, what you want to do. Think about whether or not you have a plan. Do you have a 5-year plan, or do you even have a 1-year plan? Essentially, do you have your goals listed out, and do you have a plan and framework for how you actually want to achieve those goals? And you know, in many cases, people might feel a little bit stuck. So I'm going to help walk you through some strategies you can use if you've ever felt any one of those feelings, or if you're just generally questioning how you can take it to the next level. And so many of us come into safety through different routes, right? So one way that a lot of people come in is without even working in safety to begin with. You know, perhaps you were working in a different capacity at a particular organization. and you slowly picked up some safety responsibilities. The classic story, right, is somebody who got hurt, and then in that time that they were working after that, they picked up some responsibilities for health and safety, even though their initial job path was a different one. So many people come in through safety that way. Another way that people come in is through academics. So there are, at BCSP, we have 81 qualified academic programs, which I can talk to a little bit about that later, but there are lots of safety programs out there, the bachelor's, master's, and even doctoral level as well. And so this is one way that people also come into safety as well. And what tends to happen is you get out into the field and you're super excited. Maybe you are doing an internship and you find yourself in construction and you're learning about safety and picking up all of these new skills and understanding what really ignites your passion in safety. And the opposite of that happens too. You know, you might learn about training, or you might even move to a position where you become management. And for some, suddenly you might feel like the job has changed, or even that you've plateaued. And this might be a symptom of starting to feel stuck. And again, coming to that point of reflection of how you can continuously improve and take the next step and to make it to that next level. So if you're feeling stuck, what does that feel like exactly? I think that one of the biggest things that contributes to people feeling stuck is not actually having goals, not having that set and that plan for how you're going to move forward. I think that's really the first step, and the first thing that you need to do is diagnose exactly where those issues are and how you can move forward. And that really begins with goals. Stuck might feel like minimal salary increases, whatever that might mean in the industry and the area where you live. Your responsibility leveling off, if it starts to feel like things become too easy or that you're not being challenged. If you're feeling burned out, if you feel like you're not making progress, or you don't have that plan, and you might think, well, this is what got me here, and I'm here. And the good news is there are some things that you can do. There are some actions that you can take to help you get out of that rut, to help you feel unstuck in a way. And so one of my favorite authors is this guy, Zig Ziglar, and he asks this question. He says, do you believe that you can do things to negatively impact your career? Right? And I think that probably most of us would say, yes, there are things that we could do to negatively impact our career. And the good news is that there's a flip side to that. The flip side is that if there's things that you can do to negatively impact your career, then by default, you also have to consider that your actions can impact your life in a positive way. So how do we set actions in motion that are going to help us do that? Another quote that I like is by Seth Godin. He says, what do you want? Let me guess, you'd like to be respected, successful, independent, appropriately busy, and maybe a little famous. You'd like to do work that you're proud of and do it for people that you care about. And I think for many people, this is a quote that resonates. This is something that people want to achieve. Another good author, Cal Newport, he's a computer science professor out of Georgetown. And he really advocates for being so good that they can't ignore you. And he also says that skills, in many cases, will actually trump passion for the quest for the work that you love. So he's a large advocate of building skills. He actually says, don't follow your passion. He says instead that passion actually takes time. So you gain passion as you get to the top of your craft, as you gain control over your career progressively. He says that you need to build your career capital and think small and act big. So in other words, do things that are going to give you quick, small wins that are going to build on each other to help you achieve your overall goals. And that goal might be working in a particular industry. It might be getting into a particular aspect of EHS. It might be becoming top-level management. It might be getting a certification. It might be skilling up in a particular area, like, again, like ergonomics or fire safety. So we'll talk about ways that you can implement some of those small steps. So when Cal Newport talks about passion, and he talks about mastery, he really says that it's made up of 3 factors, okay? Autonomy, competence, and relatedness. I like to think about going to a hibachi grill, and you see these chefs make these incredible meals, and you see them flipping stuff up and making volcanoes, and it's a whole entire show, and they're so good at it. They have achieved a level of mastery where you can see that they're having fun, where it's enjoyable, that they've gained that passion through a level of mastery. And so autonomy really refers to your control of how you fill your time. So if you have a high degree of autonomy, you're really endorsing your own actions at the highest level of reflection. Competence is this level of mastery that I was talking about, and relatedness really refers to a feeling of connection with others, whether that be your coworkers, whether that be employees who work in the organization that you work with, whether it's on the EHS team, whether it's with leadership, whether it's with your family. It's having that level of relatedness. And so these things can help to build that passion and to help build that mastery. Cal Newport defines great work as creativity, impact, and control. And so, thinking about what are the rare and valuable skills that you bring. So what are some skills that we can think about in safety and health that might be useful and that can contribute to great work? Some of the ones that come to mind are communications. So being able to communicate with people at all levels. So how can you leverage your communication skills to move from talking to somebody on the front lines to switching to talking to a VP or presenting to somebody that doesn't know anything about your industry? So public speaking and writing. So if you need to develop reports, how do you convey that information in a meaningful way? That's not just a good skill for safety, it's a good skill overall. Negotiation, relationship building, and influence, decision making, and project management. These are all ways that you can contribute to great work throughout your organization and build skills that are going to be valuable, not just for you in EHS, but overall. It's going to help you build that career capital. So let's think about you. Let's dream a little bit. Think about what you wanted to be when you were a kid, and you thought about what you wanted to be when you grew up. How many of you had a vision of that, and has that vision changed over time? In many cases, you might have wanted to be, when you were a kid, you might have wanted to be an astronaut or a doctor or something else. I have a 4-year-old, and when I ask him what he wants to do, what he wants to be, he says he wants to keep people safe. And I didn't tell him to say that. He said that's actually his superpower, which is a pretty nice thing. But the point is this: we think of it like this. When we think about our career passions, when we think about how we're going to get to that next level, one way to think about it is like a ladder. And as you climb that ladder and as you think about those steps, what are you going to do? What steps are you going to take? You might find a specific company. You might find an organization or even a career, and it's got this well-defined path on how you're going to get to that level. So we climb and we go up and we go up, we go up, and there might be a detour or two, but we keep on climbing. And the question that you want to ask yourself is your ladder leaning against the right building? A little bit earlier in the presentation, Kate talked about, pigeonholing yourself and not fully realizing the potential or where you want to be. So think about not only the steps that you want to take, but where are you actually leaning that ladder? Are the things you're doing going to help you achieve your goals? And have you figured out what those goals are? Sometimes this happens even with salary. So if you are not satisfied with your salary or your current pay model, where should that be? We have a way that can help you with that. If you go to the BCSP website, you'll be able to see the Safety, Health, and Environmental Industry Salary Survey and Calculator. It was actually updated just this year. So if you go to the website, you'll be able to take a look at that to understand kind of where you are in relation to your industry, your qualifications. Here's an example: somebody who has a CSP, 2 or more certifications, graduate degree, anywhere from 4 to 14 years of experience in a publicly traded company. And you can see The median here, 110,600, and 90th percentile is 141,000. So I encourage you to check that out, put in your own qualifications, your geography, and see where that ends up, and it can help give you a good gauge of what that might look like. So another thing that you can do is think about your perfect day. If you think about it in one sentence, where are you waking up? What do you do? Who's there? Where do you go? What does work look like, and what's not there? This is a good way to help you begin that process of defining those goals. Think about, what does that perfect day look like, and where do you actually want to be? As I mentioned before, when we're talking about that career capital, again, Cal Newport says that strive for that top 5%. And if it's been done before, it can be done by you as well. So again, I think about continuous improvement. When you think about continuous improvement in your career and your life, there are several different domains that you can look at. Look at skills, experience, achievement, network, and knowledge. Earlier we talked about, making sure that you keep track of your accomplishments. That is so important, because not only does it provide a good track record for your future employer, but the other thing that it does is it provides you with a path for that continuous improvement. It shows you where you can continue to build and where you have been excelling. And if you do that, you'll find that every day it tends to build on itself. And if you're looking for ways where you can improve or things that you can do, there are some things that you can look at. You can look at LinkedIn, like I mentioned before. Look at interviews, or even look at job, when you cover your career throughout a particular industry. Look at the focus of where you were focused. Was it industrial hygiene? Was it ergonomics? Look at your feedback from previous employers and your employers now. And you can even do self-assessments to help you figure out exactly where you need to go. So what are some things that I had on my list? So as I mentioned, I came into safety through education. I went to an undergraduate program in safety, and I made a 5-year plan as soon as I had graduated with that degree. Some of the things that were on my plan: right from the outset, I knew that I wanted to pursue certifications. So CSP was one thing that I wanted to pursue. And as I developed that passion and love for industrial hygiene, I also wanted to pursue the CIH. I wanted to go to graduate school and get a doctorate. That was one of my long-term goals. That was one of the things that I had set out. I wanted to speak and improve my public speaking and go to conferences. And so that was another thing that I had put on my list. I wanted to be a mentor. And I wanted to be one of those people that you could reach out to, that you could call, and I'd be able to share my experiences and help people on their path in their career progression in safety, and in any way that I could. And so the way that I approached this was to make plans for every single one of these things. I chunked it out into small steps and used those steps to achieve those goals. So you don't need to take 2 minutes right now, but I would encourage you to make your own list. Think about what skills, experience, achievement, how are you going to build your network, and what kind of knowledge do you want to pursue going forward. And just make your own list, and that can become the basis for a 5-year plan or for some more specific goals. As we talk about goals, we can talk about safety specifically, but it's important to consider all of the domains of your life, because they all build on each other, whether that's spiritual, intellectual, emotional, physical, social, parental, marital, financial. All of these things build onto each other. Don't forget to take care of yourself too. Take action to make your goals a reality in work and in your personal life. There's another good book by an author, Carol Dweck. It's called Mindset. This is one of my favorite books, and it's a really simple concept that she breaks down, and it's different kinds of mindsets. The really good news here is that you can actually improve your mindset. So she considers a fixed mindset as one where people consider failure to be the limit of their abilities, or I'm either good at something or I'm not, or when I'm frustrated, I give up. If those are things that you're thinking, you might have more of a fixed mindset. You can move to a growth mindset by looking at failure as a real opportunity to grow, by embracing challenges as a way to grow, by trying new things, by understanding that it's actually okay to fail, that failure is not just okay, it's a critical piece to building that mastery, to building that passion. And if you look at failure and challenges as opportunities, you can create a growth mindset, which will help you in many ways. There are also limiting beliefs that we have, and these are associated with that fixed mindset, looking at things as black and white, personalizing things, making things your fault when perhaps they weren't, catastrophizing, saying that, because something happened, it's always going to happen again in the future that way, or universalizing certain things. So these are all different aspects of a fixed mindset. One way to move to a growth mindset is to do something really simple, and that is to practice gratitude. I try to do this every single morning and just think about what are 3 things every single day that I'm grateful for. I try to start the day with this every single day, and I think what you'll find is that if you continue to do this, it's going to help you look at things in a different way, and in some ways will change your mindset and help you to gain some traction where you otherwise might have been feeling stuck before. As safety professionals, we are all familiar with SMART goals. When we talk about these goals, how do we get there? Specific, measurable, actionable, relevant or repeatable, time-bound. I'd like to offer 2 more, which are risky and exciting. So when you set these goals, make sure that your goals push, that they stretch you, that they are goals that are going to help you achieve something in the future and that are actually going to push your limits and push your boundaries of comfort, because those are the ones that will truly get you to where you want to be. There are some different things that you can do as far as setting your goals. So for some people, it helps to tell somebody and provide accountability for those goals. So consider that by getting a partner or by making your goals public, it will help you to keep accountable. Daily reviews, take a look every day. Are you making progress? Weekly reviews, looking at your overall 90-day plan and doing things to celebrate these small wins. One really simple thing that you can do when you complete an important task or you make progress on a goal, say the word done out loud. It's a very small thing, but it's a way to help celebrate and build some of that momentum that you'll need to continue on in achieving your goals in the future. When we think of habits, they're very important to achieving these goals. And we typically think of persistence as just continuing to go. And most habits are really a routine of cue, routine, and reward. So there's a really good book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and he actually talks about safety in this book. And to make a long story short, the CEO of a company, Alcoa, made safety a keystone habit in that company. And what ended up happening is the company, by using safety as a keystone habit, was able to achieve massive productivity and really high morale. And the company overall did really well over a long period of time, because as safety professionals, we know that that happens when you make safety a part of what you do. He used it as a keystone habit, as a driving force and catalyst for change in everything that happened in the company. And the secret to that persistence is really one stick at a time. If you think about a beaver building a dam, they make this huge structure, and you think about a small beaver doing it, they do it one stick at a time. So these small little wins build up on each other and end up helping you achieve your goals. When we think again of safety and continuous improvement, we think of how we measure it. We think of leading and lagging measures. So think about the leading and lagging indicators as part of what you do and how you're going to achieve those goals. So if your goal is, for example, to get a certification, how are you going to measure your progress towards getting that certification? Maybe what you'll say is, I'm going to study for the certification this much. I'm going to set a date for when I'm going to complete my application. I'm going to reach out to people in my network to try to understand what they did and how they studied for their certification. So these are all small things that you can do and measure that are going to help you build towards that ultimate goal. So to create a good habit, there are some things you can do. You can make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. So I'll give you an example. When I took the CSP and CIH certifications, I took them both in the same year. So as you can imagine, the year before that was a lot of studying, and that required a lot of time and putting forth effort. So I had to make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. So what did I do? Well, I made a routine. After work every day, I would go right to the gym, and then I would go to the library to study. At the time, I was living in Boston. And if you're familiar with traffic patterns in Boston, you know at the end of the day, it's really slow if you're taking public transportation or even if you're driving. So I was able to build that routine in because I would go to the gym and then I would go to the library, and I was able to study for several hours. And at the end of that, the traffic had all died down. It actually made my route home much easier. I didn't have to contend with all of the traffic. I built it in to my day. It made it really easy for me to follow that habit. And after I did that for a certain period of time, I was able to just stick with it. And it was a really fulfilling experience that helped me on a lot of different levels. You can also break a bad habit by doing the opposite. How do you make it invisible, unattractive? How do you make it difficult for you to continue on with a bad habit? And how do you make it unsatisfying? Okay. I know we're almost out of time here. This is one of my favorite slides in this presentation because, as I mentioned, when I started out in my career in safety, I always wanted to get the CSP. And what I had learned later and realized is that when you think about continuous improvement and how you apply it not only to your EHS programs, but how you apply it to yourself, and where you want to be in safety, if you're a little bit like me, you might have gone through different transitions in your career. You know, maybe you're the strategic planner. Maybe you're the person who really finds training as a passion. Maybe you're the technical expertise and people come to you when they have a specific question about construction or industrial hygiene. Maybe you're the manager and you enjoy dealing with people, or maybe you're even the supervisor or you're working with supervisors and leading at all levels. What it all really comes down to is the safety culture and how you embed safety at every level of the organization. And you know, check out our website if you want to see a little bit more about that, or you can reach out to me and I can kind of talk to you about you know, the different paths that you can take in safety. If certification is something that you are interested in as well, we have a process for that. Again, I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. Essentially, if one of your goals is certification, it's a simple process where you apply online, determine if you're eligible, purchase the exam, pass the exam, and then you maintain certification. There's a variety of different ways that you can earn recertification points through professional development, which is going to help keep you on track as a safety professional. So there are some other really good books. I don't have time to go through it all, but high performance habits, you know, generally you can apply some of these habits personally and socially. And, you know, if you really want to level up, think about the things that we've talked about. So the first thing that you want to do is figure out where you are now. Think about that perfect day. What are your passions? What does stuck feel like to you? If you felt any of those symptoms that I talked about a little earlier, you might feel like you're stuck, and there's great things that you can do. Think about your mindset. Are you thinking of failures as opportunity? Try to get to a growth mindset. Set those goals and apply those habits. Try to get those quick early wins that are going to help you build on each other, that are going to help you achieve those overall goals, which you have to have in the first place. And one of the best ways to level up, my favorite way to level up and get to that next level, is mentorship. Reach out to leaders in the field who will be happy to talk to you about what you need to do. Find out what other people have done. Make sure that you connect. I know that it's really hard to do in COVID where we're trying to remain socially distanced, but you know, do it through Zoom, do it in any way that you can. Events like these, reach out and network in any possible way that you can. I'm one person that you can always talk to. If you want to reach out to me, I am always here to talk to you about, I'll talk about safety with anybody as long as I can. So just reach out, make those connections, because it's so important. and it's something that you can really do. One quote that I really like, and I'll end off with this, is by George Bernard Shaw. He says, "The reasonable person adapts themselves to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to themselves. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable person." So that's just a quote that I like. Another quick thing that I'll mention, because you attended this webinar, if you are interested in certification and there's a certification that you're looking at, we'll be able to waive $100 off a new application fee. So just email me, colin.brown@bcsp.org with the subject line application fee promotion. If that's something you're interested in, I can give you a coupon code that'll waive $100 off a new application fee for one of those certifications. And if you're currently studying for a certification, we also have ExamCore, which is an online training that you can use to help you prepare for that. Other than that, I know we were right on the end. So I just want to thank you again for spending your time with me this morning and letting me speak to you about this important topic. Again, reach out to me in the future if you ever have any questions. I'm always here. You can email me or call me, and I'll help you in any way that I can. So, and again, I just want to say thanks to ASSP LA and to Shirley Parsons for inviting me to speak about this. And thanks to all of you for sharing your time. So with that, I'll open it back up for any Q&A, and that's all I got.